welcome to Geigenomics. I want to welcome everyone who is tuning in to this episode. I'm very excited for the fact that I'm going to be able to share these ideas, and a lot of it is going to be sharing these ideas with people who will hear it for the first time. And that's really what drives me. I'm somewhat passionate about these ideas, I guess you can say, but these are the ideas that my professor shared with me, and I'm able to share them with people. And I'm not a professor, but if I had my own class to teach, this is exactly what I would be teaching. And so anyone who's tuning in now or in the future, welcome. And this episode is going to be talking about the philosophy, ethics, the economics, and the politics of what goes into a society of natural order. And this can be referred to as a private law society. It can be referred to as an anarchic ordered society. There's various names, but it's these ideas that are most important. And with that, let's begin. So, what we have is philosophy, or more specifically, political philosophy. And there's various political philosophies, and one of the most common political philosophy is utilitarianism or collectivism. And this is the idea that we're maximizing the well-being of maximizing the well-being of the most amount of people in a society. So we're looking at what is the best policy that will maximize the well-being of the majority. And this is what Plato characterized as collectivism: live for the welfare of the state as a whole. And the scientific foundation that utilitarians use is diminishing marginal utility. Now, we'll go into the economics of why utils isn't a proper means of scientific measurement, because utility is, or value is, subjective. But that's just one example of a political philosophy. Now, another political philosophy is individualism, and this is libertarianism. And this is the idea that we should have proprietary policy that satisfies the well-being of the individual. So you have individual freedom and sovereignty as opposed to collectivism. Now, discussing the politics and governance, you have state governments, which is like political democracy or statism. Another example would be Sharia law, which is an alternative to governance in Iran and Sudan. And you have anarchy or anarchic order. And anarchy comes from the Greek word anarchia, I believe. And the definition is absence of a ruler. So it's this idea that, no one is by divine right or imposition above anyone else. So it's this idea that, okay, monarchies are stupid, kings and queens are stupid, democracy is not really made up of us as the government. It's just a branched out form of governments. It's a form of statism. So anarchy is this idea that we're all individuals and we can all come together. And if you look at life, people are anarchists 99.98% of their day. No police officer is forcing anyone to go to the grocery store. You have to buy groceries. No one's doing that. The time that you're not an anarchist is when you use the roads, because those are publicly owned. But even then, we can have privatized roads, in which case we would be anarchist 100% of the time. But that's not so much the case. So it's a paradigm shift in the thinking of how you look at the world. And in order to get there, we need to establish the politics, the philosophy, and the economics. So now going into the economics, what we have in the United States is state-sponsored capitalism, or also known as crony capitalism, or also known as interventionism, or also known as a mixed economy. And Mises, Ludwig von Mises, the greatest economist of the 20th century, said that interventionism is the third way, but this leads step by step to socialism. Now, we have in order to understand the economics, we use Austrian economics, which is not the economics of Austria or the GDP of Vienna. It's just that the founders were prominently from Austria, and it was really in opposition to the German historical school of economics, who viewed economics as an empirical science, and they used the term Austrian economics to slander. It was a derogatory term towards the Austrian economists. But now the Austrian economists use that name with pride. And so the Austrian economics is essentially free market capitalism. And if we're looking at history, in 1760, we had the Industrial Revolution. And then in 1765, we had the American Revolution. And then in 1776, the Declaration of Independence. And then 1789, the French Revolution. So these were some of the prominent revolutions of ideology that came about during the 18th century. Now, I'm going to skip over the methodology of the social sciences and Austrian economics, because this is going to remain an introductory episode to the philosophy of anarchy. And now I want to discuss what is a nation state. Well, a nation state can be defined as a border geographic area under the jurisdiction of a single coercive state government. Now, what we're trying to get at here is, again, it's a paradigm shift of the social organization of man. And really the red pill that we're talking about is seeing the state as mythical, or it's an illegitimate concept. Some may refer to it as like the mafia. They provide you services, but they're really just trying to get rich off this, and they're robbing people. And it'd be better if they weren't there, because then we could actually have market solutions by the people in order to regain some freedoms and liberties and have peace and prosperity, where as opposed we have these industrial complexes run by the state, and they promote this illusion of freedom, and this goes into public education, telling us that we're the land of the free, and I'm not going to deny that we're free comparatively to other countries, but I mean, I don't know. Look, a couple weeks ago, they completely dismantled the magical piece of paper called the Constitution and locked a bunch of people in houses. So anyways, continuing off of that, we have two alternatives to social organization. The first alternative is state government, or political organization, and this is, again, democracy. Or we have natural government, which is natural organization, and this is Hayek deemed it spontaneous order, where you have people coming together to benefit themselves, and as a result, they benefit each other. Now, the state government or political state, looking at the history, we had city-states. This is like the Roman, the Greek, Italian city-states. We had theocracies, which is Iran, the Vatican, Tibet, ancient Egypt. We had empires: Assyrian, Roman, Persian, Armenian. We had monarchies, European monarchies. We had dictatorships in Cuba, North Korea, Stalin's Soviet Union, and we have nation states, aka political democracies, which is the United States and Western countries. So, again, defining a state, we characterize it as a coercive organization. It's a monopoly agency for the provision of protection. But, I mean, you could look at it as a monopoly agency on violence. And then you have, it's financed by taxation, which is legalized theft and confiscation. You can't choose not to pay for it. And then it, again, comes with this illusion that you have the consent of most of the people in its area of influence. However, it did not originate in the common understanding and agreement of society. The state originated in territorial expansion and confiscation. So, from city-states arose nation-states, and this is a higher concentration of power, and individual freedom of sovereignty has never existed. So, a natural government or anarchic order is the natural government of men. It is discovered in the free market exchange system, and it is characterized by self-government, voluntary cooperation and association, where each exchange or trade represents a vote. And using Peter Boss's The Road to Freedom, this book right here, he uses 5 cornerstones to the road to freedom. So I will discuss those now. The natural government is a market environment, right? So the first cornerstone is protection of life and property is competitively provided for via voluntary contractual agreements with private security organizations. And then as we go into the more technical aspects of anarchic order, you have insurance companies which never want to pay a claim, so they kind of create this natural governance, and they're the ones who would be most interested in providing security in order to reduce payment claims. So again, that would be going into the idea of what does a privatized police force look like. And then we have the provision, this is the second cornerstone, provision of non-compulsory education is provided. So education today is compulsory. You have to go, think of it as like a prison, minimized security prison for children. Okay. And then you have, then think of the third cornerstone, money issuance and banning services is provided privately by credit and virtual currency insurance agencies. So what we have today is fiat currency, and this is, it's illegal for you to make some, but it's not illegal for the Federal Reserve to make some. And this is what funds wars. This is what funds an increasing size of government. And basically, the bad stuff we have in life is funded by a Federal Reserve. Now, the fourth cornerstone is a provision of dispute resolution, or provision of dispute resolution is provided by private system of jurisprudence with voluntary compliance, arbitration, and mediation services. So this is who will be the third party court systems that are able to determine, who has to make these payouts, who's liable, these types of things. And, that if we're going off like the system that we have now, if you go to a court case with a police officer, I mean, who wins most of the time? And it's not, I'm not saying it's any police officer's fault. I'm saying that the system is set up where the same organization who runs the courts runs the police. So we should just separate that. And checks and balances is kind of illusionary because it's still all under the U.S. government. So, I mean, laws get passed that people don't want and all this stuff. But anyways, The fifth cornerstone is the management of community services via proprietary integrated public services. And this is essentially the idea of undivided land ownership, where like a awesome shopping mall like Disneyland, they have their own security services, trash cleaning services. Um, and I want to conclude with the last paradigm shift was the Declaration of Independence, the doctrine of natural rights. This led to the demise of monarchical states. And unfortunately, it provided the foundation for the rise of politically democratic nation states. But what we're here to discuss is like being an abolitionist during slavery. It's just the state is a monopoly on violence. It uses coercive power, and it's, I mean, I don't want to get into the metaphysics, but it could be regarded as an evil institution. And we're here to discuss freedom. Thank you.